session of KLF 2014. I have with me Moni Mohsin, who needs no introduction. Those of you who read the Friday Times or have seen her novels know her work rather well. And Moni has definitely introduced a new genre in English fiction from Pakistan. And we are very pleased and delighted that she came all the way from the UK to be with us here this morning. I'm not going to speak a lot, I hope, and I would actually want Moni to talk about herself, her books, her columns, her characters, and also read a few passages from the two celebrated novels that have not just been popular in Pakistan, but have gained global traction, particularly in India and elsewhere, of course. Moni, so welcome to Karachi.
Thank you, Raza. It's such a pleasure to be here, and it's a great privilege to be invited to the Karachi Literary Festival. It's my first time here, and I can't...
Volume.
Is it a problem with volume or better? Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Ji. Anyway, it's a great pleasure to be here and to be meeting my readers here.
Great. Moni, before we talk about your books, I think the audience here and also the others who would follow this conversation would like to know the kind of genesis or the provenance of your characters. You know, Janu, the famous butterfly, her family, her in-laws. I mean, are they real?
Well, they are real in that they are types, but they themselves don't exist. I always say that the butterfly is myself. She's based most closely on myself. But there are people who I have, they're composite characters, taken from here and there, and some people that I've met in my life who have inspired certain aspects of them, their personalities or their traits.
And would you say that they are purely Pakistani characters, or do they have a wider sort of cultural relevance?
I used to think that they were only Pakistani characters, but ever since Tender Hooks was published in India and in Bangladesh and in Britain, and it was distributed globally thereafter, and in America, I have found that this is actually a universal character. The butterfly exists wherever you have societies where there is a lot of inequality, and wherever you have people who live in great wealth and they live sort of cloistered, privileged lives, you have butterflies. So you will find her in Riyadh, you will find her in Lima, you will find her in Jakarta, you will find her in Moscow in huge numbers, you will find her in Kuala Lumpur. I think she's a global character, really.
And is it sort of chick lit, or is it serious social commentary? I mean, you know, how would you... I mean, when you started writing your column for the Friday Times, The Diary of a Social Butterfly, did you think of it as a serious commentary on the way Pakistani society was evolving or structured, or it was just in fun and jest you started off?
I think it was V.S. Naipaul who said, and I think it's true also of journalism, he was speaking of books, but he said books are orphans, they make their own way in the world. And I think by that he didn't mean just how successful a book is going to be or how widely read it is going to be. I think he also meant how it was going to be read. So when a book comes into your hands, how you read it will depend on your perceptions, on your background, etc., and on your inclinations. Whereas what the writer may have intended may have been entirely different. When I started it, it was meant to be in fun and in jest, but as I got into it, I realized very soon that what I had created was a means of social critique, and it would be wasteful not to point out what I thought was worth highlighting in our social lives.
Wonderful. And before I ask you to read an excerpt, tell us how do you view satire and humor as two different categories of writing, and would you like to tell us a bit?
Well, I think humor is a response to the world. it is, as we all know, very closely related to tragedy as well.
Yeah.
I think humor arises from that little gap between hope and reality. Mm-hmm. What you had hoped you would get and what you actually get. There is that, from that gap, in that gap, you have a very rich theme for humor. You also have a very rich theme for tragedy in there, because if you think about it, what Romeo and Juliet had hoped and what they got were quite different.
Right, right.
And in that little gap lies tragedy and the scope for humor. And if you look at a character like Mr. Bean, for example, what he sets out to do is very different to what he actually gets at the end. And the discrepancy between the two is the genesis of humor.
Rather well put.
But I think satire is very closely related, and if because I'm in Pakistan, I can say this. I think satire is a cousin brother of humor, in that it is also born of that same difference between reality and expectation. But I think the progenitor of satire is perhaps anger as opposed to tragedy.
Right.
It is, or I should say sadness. It is anger because there are some things in all satirists have this in common. There's something that pisses them off mightily. Right. And they write about that with humor.
Correct.
And I think the intention is to hold a mirror up to society. And once my sister said this to me, and I think it is right, it is the difference between satire and humor is also that in satire, you talk truth to power. Whereas in humor, you just expound on the human condition.
Rather well put. And now that you've given the background of your writing, would you like to read
I'll read a very short excerpt from my second butterfly book, which is Tender Hooks. And I will read it in the way that she would speak it.
Wonderful.
So this is on, it is written in the form of a diary. So every chapter is like an entry in a diary. And this is 17th October 2009. And terrorists strike 3 law enforcement facilities in Lahore and kill at least 18. That was the headline that day. I think it was in Manawan that terrorists struck, and they killed lots of policemen. So here it is. I swear, I feel frightened myself going to the bazaar in case some mad weirdo beardo arrives and shoots me for buying Western food like chips, or for wearing Western clothes like pop socks. All the time I'm looking over my shoulder. All the time I'm thinking someone standing behind me in a shop or parked beside me on a bicycle in a traffic jam might blow me up. It's been 2 full months since I went to a Wari hotel on the Mall to get my facial. The spa there is the best at giving facials now. But ever since the Marriott was bombed last year in Islu, I've to stop hoteling. The only thing I used to go still was for my facial. Now I get a girl to come to the house, but she's not a thatch on the Avari one. And also, she has BO. Honestly, what the Talibans have put us through. So when people say Americans are behind all this killing shilling, I say, Baba, I have to use Estee Lauder products for my facial. And Estee Lauder, as everyone knows, is American. So why would Americans put axe in their own foot by causing all the killing in Pakistan? So no one could even leave their houses anymore to go and get Estee Lauder facials. Huh? In any case, who is against facials? Is it the Americans? No. Is it the Indians? No. Is it the Jews? No. Is it the Talibans? Yes. Yes, yes, yes. No, the Talibans.
Brilliant.
Thank you.
That was rather apt given what we are passing through as well. And so, I mean, just talking about your characters, I mean, the kind of intimacy you've developed with Butterfly, Janu, Kulchu, etc., etc. How have they, I mean, how close are they to you now?
To me?
Yes.
Well, they're my second family.
Okay.
As I said, Butterfly is myself. And a lot of people when they meet my children, they're looking to see whether. And my poor husband also suffers the same fate. But because I've been writing this column for so long, for too many years, in fact, than I care to remember, it's become almost internalized. So everywhere I go, whenever I'm engaged in a conversation, whatever I see, I immediately think to myself, I must file this away for Butterfly. I must use this later. This is really good. So there's a cousin of mine who was telling me that her daughter had moved to Japan. And she said to me, कि वहाँ पे इतनी बर्फ पड़ती है, पर वो इतनी अच्छी तरह cope up करती है ना, इतना cope up करती है. And I immediately thought to myself, what a wonderful thing to say. I mean, people tell you, okay, I'm sorry I'm so late. I got stuck up in traffic. And and also because we frequently get words mixed up. कि वो इतना हंसी वो तो historically हो गई. So whenever I hear things like this, I immediately think, this is going in.
Indeed. Shows how these characters have grown on you, and you have internalized them,
Completely.
partly, yeah. But I mean, the transition, in your latest novel, Tender Hooks, I mean, that's my observation, that Butterfly was this airhead, facial-loving, Taliban-hating babe. I mean, you've tried to redeem her in your second book. I mean, in the sense that you've also shown that she has a heart of gold with all these problems and mistakes and greed, etc. And what led you to that sort of...
Well, if I was to give you a prosaic answer, it was because it's a novel, whereas the first one is a collection of columns.
Yeah.
And in a novel, you have this, as Kamala will testify, this very boring thing called character arc. So people have to develop. And if they don't develop, then it's not really a novel. But no, I just thought that, I do think that she is a person with some merit as well. She is shallow indeed. She is frivolous. She does like the nice things in life. But I think she's also loyal. I think she's brave. I think she speaks her mind, which a lot of people don't do here. They may think lots of things, but they don't say them.
Right.
I think she says them. She's candid. And I think also she can be soft-hearted. And when she's confronted with evidence of her own short-sightedness, her own myopia, she takes steps to correct herself. And I think a lot of people do that, even people you think are frivolous or shallow or whatever. And I also believe, that people constantly surprise you in life. Really.
Yes.
You may think that, you may have written somebody off and then they may do something quite heroic.
Correct. Also, I mean, through your basically columns and then your novel, I mean, you've created a new voice, a kind of a new language as well, if I may say. So, because, I mean, it's a hybrid language. And how do you think it has been received? Because obviously readers are not just in Pakistan or South Asia, they're outside as well. So do you think they have related to the use of vernacular words or other? I mean, what has been the reaction of the readers?
Well, in Pakistan and India, they have not had any difficulty in understanding what I was saying, because we all speak like that. Yeah. We all speak like that only. So we are all knowing what we are saying. But I think in the West also they have, because I have written after a whole stream of Pakistani and Indian authors have already softened up the Western market. So, Salman Rushdie, memorably with Midnight's Children, brought in a different kind of lingo, the language in which we speak and in which we think. So even Western readers are now familiar with that.
Right.
I had to tone it down a little bit because I had to take out a lot of the Urdu words. But, whereas I would have said, only the bhukha nangas go there. I had to write only the hungry nakeds go there. And they understood that.
Yeah, right. So would you read something more from...
This is one of my favorite bits. I wrote this in 2001. This is from a diary of Social Butterfly. What I had read from before was from Tender Hooks. But this is in September 2001, and the two headlines are Al-Qaeda attacks New York and blows up the Twin Towers. And the second headline is about Butterfly herself. So Butterfly loses her patience with Janu, who's her husband, for hogging the TV. Pehle to chalo, I'd been doing guzara with Janu. But if ever there was a time to get a divorce, it's now. I swear he spends his whole life in front of BBC and CNN. Sometimes only he'll switch to Star News. And kambacht, our cable is also fixed so that on channel 53 CNN hai, 54 pe Star News hai, and on 55 it's again Bore BBC. Ek news khatam hoti hai to dusri starts. Majal hai that Kulchu and me can switch to anything sensible channel like MTV or some fun thing. Nah, bhai. Bas, Janu's hooked onto this America versus Afghanistan drama. I said to Janu, what's so interesting now? Twin Towers have gone, Pentagon has gone. Please switch to B4U, na? But he gives me dirty looks and sticks to Bore BBC. So yesterday, I let him have it. I said, if anyone should be upset, it should be me. After all, Auntie Pussy, Mummy and me, we were planning a trip to New York and Mummy's third cousin was coming to Pakistan, leaving her apartment and cat for us to look after for 2 whole weeks. Mummy said that Pussy will look after the cat because she herself is quite catty. And then this planes thing happened. Worst timing. Kya tha if they'd waited for another 2 weeks? Main hua thi New York. Mummy said, Masood has done it. Bhai, Twin Towers, what else? Apparently, Masood is the Israeli intelligence agency that does a lot of bad things all over the world. Why is it called Masood? I asked Mummy. She said, you don't know, beta. These Jews, they're very clever. They've given it a Muslim name, Jaan Ke, so that hamara naam badnaam ho. Look at them, I swear. Mummy says that on that day, all 4,000 Israelis who work in the World Trade Center were told not to come. Masood warned them from day before only. And then some people are saying that Bush had the planes flown into Twin Towers himself only. Why? Because he wanted an excuse to evade Afghanistan, and then Iraq, and then Iran, and then Syria, and then Sudan, and then maybe Saudi also. He wants the oil, na? So bhukha. But Auntie Pussy, as usual, doesn't agree. She's always liked to be different from the time when she was a little girl and wore only ghararas and ate only bindi. Anyway, she says Pal Gore has done it. And why has Pal Gore done it? Because Bush rigged the election and now Pal Gore is gone and done this so that Bush's government will fall and he will get his badla. And everyone will say, look how incontinent Bush is. And look at the Indians. So jealous. Just because we are best friends with America again. Reminds me of Bashira, who used to live in a shack in the slums across the canal, and she used to do my waxing. When I chucked her out and hired her neighbor Hamida, she became so vicious ki pucho hi na. Just because we've got the Americans ki naukri, Indians are doing all sort of propaganda on their TV against us. Jealous hai na bichare. But Americans also I don't understand. Sometimes they are saying that we Muslims did it because we are jealous of them, because they live in skyscrapers, and they also live in condoms on the beach, and they eat Big Macs and hot dogs and watch Jerry Springer and Oprah Winfrey, and they have freedom and we don't. But darling, who wants to live in a condom, even if it's on a beach in LA? If you have to do your own laundry and cook your own food and wash your own car and even bharao your petrol yourself. I mean, ye koi life hai? Honestly, I'd much rather live in my kothi in Gulbarg with my cook and my drivers and my maid and my dhobi and my bearer and my gardener and my sweeper and my chowkidar than any old condom in LA. And also, Papa, skyscraper mein reh to lo, but what happens when electricity goes? Who will come up and down those 50 floors, huh? And anyways, I to love my lawn. So nice for parties in winters. And the nice thing about Gulbarg is that everyone lives here. Mummy's just around corner, Flopsy's on my backside, Mallu's down the road. And because we are so close to the ground, no plane can fly into us.
That's excellent. I think we have about 20 minutes left. Mm-hmm. So we'll open it up for questions and answers or comments if you have. you can address them to Moni. Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank
Well,
you.
she is the butterfly, so
I am the
I
butterfly.
will self-confessed identity.
If there are no questions.
Whose quotation is this, that the books are orphan, made their own way, make their own way?
V.S. Naipaul.
If I'm not mistaken, you were based in England, aren't you? UK? Hello? Yes,
Sorry,
here.
what's the question?
I'm
Yeah,
here.
second row.
Oh, sorry.
Second row.
Yes.
Ji.
So how do you get your source, all your material about Pakistan?
Gee. I lived for many years in Pakistan before I moved to London. And so I'm quite sort of steeped in the, for the want of a better word, the Gulberg culture. But when I live in London, I know my characters already. Most of Butterfly was written while I was living here. So I know all my characters really, really well. And whenever a situation occurs, which I keep track of through Twitter and through reading newspapers on the internet, and also through friends and very regular visits to Pakistan, I'm able to pick it up and just use it.
There was one more. Yeah. Either mic digit.
Are there any new book? Well, there's going to be another Diary of a Social Butterfly in July this year, inshallah. But then after that, I hope to take a break from her and write a novel. No, a novel based on something else.
I have something to say. I've been an ardent admirer of the butterfly from the time she began writing, but hearing it spoken by the butterfly was an absolute pleasure today.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It's a great pleasure to be here, to be able to read her to you.
Yes, I wanted to add to that. Yes, it was. Absolutely. But Moni, my brief question is that do you intend getting out of the butterflies Punjabi ethos or the culture and get into the other ethnic nuances of the country, the other provinces, they have their own set of it. Is it, do I feel it, or is it very Punjabi oriented, Gulberg, Lahore centrist, or do you feel the same butterflies fluttering in Karachi as well?
Oh, yeah.
No, I meant ethnically. Yeah.
Ethnically.
Yeah. Psychologically, yes.
I lived for a few years in Karachi, and many of my butterfly columns were written from here. And they were based on people I had met here and things I'd heard here, or parties I'd been to here, or events that I'd participated in. So from that point of view, I think there has been a representation of people from outside. But the only reason why I based the butterfly on and all the characters on Lahore was mainly because of my own shortcoming, because that's what I know best. And I'm sure that there can be one based on life in Karachi, or people in Karachi, or non-Punjabis of Karachi, or non-Punjabis of, Pathans or whatever, or Sindhis or Balochis. But that will have to be by people who know them better than myself.
I just wanted to know, did Miss Butterfly vote this election? And if yes, which party did she vote for?
देखिए, vote is a very personal thing. हाँ, आपको इजाजत नहीं है इस तरह के सवाल करने की मेरे से. जानू ने मुझे कहा किसी को नहीं बताना. लेकिन क्योंकि just between you, me and the four walls, it was very hard, because वो प्रॉब्लम हो गया था ना, क्योंकि पीपीपी को तो पहले तो मैंने दिया था फॉर बेनजीर ओनली, बट वो लास्ट गवर्नमेंट इतनी अच्छी नहीं मुझे लगी ना. सो देन आई थॉट कि अब क्या करूं. तो लाहौर को तो खैर उन्होंने काफी सेटअप किया हुआ था पहले से. इतने फूल लगाए हैं लाहौर में माशाल्लाह, और ब्रिजेस बनाए हैं एंड थिंग्स लाइक दैट ओनली. پر میں نے سوچا کہ چلو مے بی بریتھ آف فریش ایئر کو دینا چاہیے, پر وہ اتنی جلدی اسٹیل ہو گئی نا کہ مجھے وہ سمجھ ہی نہیں آئی کہ وہ بریتھ آف فریش ایئر کا ہوا کیا. تو پھر وہ میں نے سوچا کہ تھوڑے سے اور پھول لگوا لیتے ہیں پھر, تو وہ پھر میں نے ٹائیگر لیلیز کے لیے ووٹ دے دیا مال پہ.
ٹائیگر لیلیز.
Hello. Excuse me.
جی.
First of all, we'd like to say that I really enjoyed your book, and it's really an honor to meet you over here.
Thank you.
And our question is that is butterfly's life somehow related to your life or your childhood or something like that?
Oh, totally. I am her. People don't, log mante nahi hai, but we all have hidden shallows. Some people's shallows are better hidden than other people's, and mine are very well. I hope they're well hidden, but I have lots and lots of shallows, and I draw on those to write The Butterfly. So a lot of it is based on my life, really.
My name is Jahangir Khan. I'm from Karachi and living more than 60 years in Karachi. Anyhow, you were once living in Pakistan. Nowadays, you are living in London.
Ji.
You just in a couplet you have आपने लोगों का रुझान तालिबान की तरफ किया. Taliban is the पैदावार या born about a decade, only 10 years. But what about when the Americans drone attacks on Pakistan, and according to New York Times last year, they 40,000 people murdered by the drone attacks, and on only 1,000 दहशतगर्द कहिए मारे गए. तो जो 39,000 उस वक्त जो मारे गए, उस पे आपने कपलेट में क्या इशारा किया और अमरीकी साम्राज्य के खिलाफ क्या कहा? ये भी आपका एक हक है बहसियत अच्छी राइटर और पोइटर के कि आप इसकी तरफ भी तवज्जो दिलाएं कि पूरी दुनिया में अमरीकी साम्राज्य जिस तरह से दहशतगर्दी के नाम पर खुद एक वन ऑफ द ग्रेटेस्ट दहशतगर्द ऑफ द ऑल टाइम बन गया है, उस पर क्या इजहार ख्याल किया?
Yeah, I think this is a little bit beyond the butterfly's ken, but still, I think अगर आप पूरी butterfly पढ़ें तो उसमें अमेरिकनों के खिलाफ भी काफ़ी कुछ लिखा गया है. तो I don't think I have let them off lightly, but I really do believe that eventually one has to take responsibility for one's own actions. And you cannot go around blaming other people for what befalls you for 60 years. At some point in your life, you have to take stock of how you yourself are culpable as well. Shukriya.
मैं इस पर कुछ अगर आपकी इजाजत हो तो हुजूर वाला ये जो आपने आदादो शुमार यहाँ पर पेश किए, देखिए ये बिल्कुल गलत हैं, क्योंकि जितने भी आदादो शुमार हैं उसके मुताबिक ड्रोन हमलों में मरने वाले 3,000 से ज़्यादा नहीं, और दहशतगर्दों के हाथ मरने वाले पाकिस्तानी अब 50,000 से ज़्यादा हैं. तो मैं सिर्फ इसकी इस्लाह करना चाहता था.
आसमा होता है जी. आसमा, आपका सवाल है? एक्सक्यूज मी.
तो आपने देखिए बड़े मियाँ, आपने कहा कि 39,000 लोग जो है वो ड्रोन से मर गए, तो ये बात सब सुन रहे हैं, गलत बात है ना. देख, हम साम्राज्य के खिलाफ हैं, हमेशा से रहे हैं, लेकिन आदादो शुमार सही रखिए. अच्छा,
हेलो
गलत से आप दे रहे हैं साहब.
पीछे भी एक, सॉरी, आपका सवाल.
Hello?
जी.
You can hear me? Okay. Moni, everybody is talking about the butterfly, so I want to take them off this track and talk about End of Innocence. I thought that was an excellent book that you first wrote on fiction. Are you planning to write more fiction? Because I read that book twice.
Ji.
And it was a beautiful book. End of Innocence.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I just wanted to ask you that apart from Butterfly, are you planning to write more fiction?
Ji, hopefully after this, I'm editing the next volume of Butterfly, and after that I'll write another novel.
Okay. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. I wanted to ask a question that in your books, the main inspiration, the main thing that attracts the readers is the hybrid language, right?
Ji.
So what inspired you to write that way, and at what age did you start actually writing?
Oh my God, I'll have to give my age away now.
It's okay, you look young, don't worry.
I was 4 when I started. I was quite young. I went to the convent, so I learned to read and write very quickly. I started writing in this voice because this is what I heard around me all the time. And when I started writing this column, it seemed entirely natural to me to use the voice of the people, and at least of a certain section of people. And I thought that it wouldn't really, I wouldn't be able to pack the punches if I didn't use that language. And also in the interest of veracity, that is why I chose that.
It's good, your books are really interesting.
Thank you very much.
It's nice listening to you, Moni. Just about your autobiography, I was just going to know that you are a sitarist also. Whether you're going to perform it at this festival or I can have some CDs.
That was my performance. Thank you.
If you can provide me some CDs, I'll be grateful, honored.
I'd be delighted if somebody was to do CDs, but they haven't been done so far. I haven't been approached by anybody for them.
And how I can get it?
Hai nahi ji.
Acha. Thank you. Thank you.
You'll have to kidnap me. I shouldn't say that lightly.
Don't. Acha, idhar.
There's Asma over there.
Okay, Asma se pehle karne hai.
Hi. Hello, here.
Yeah, unfair question.
Sorry.
Moni.
Ji.
But you've written this talking to the butterfly, and you heard all this around you when you were very small. Now you're a little bigger.
Only little.
Maybe your next book should be talking to the drone.
Yes.
Because that's all we hear about.
Yes.
आप औरतें रेप हुई हैं उनकी बात करते हैं, ड्रोन अटैक्स की नहीं बात करते. बच्चे मर रहे हैं उनकी क्यों बात करते हैं, ड्रोन अटैक्स की नहीं बात करते. आपकी नानी जान मर गई क्यों रो रहे, ड्रोन अटैक्स की नहीं बात करते. आपने घर में हलवा पकाया है क्यों हंस रहे हैं, ड्रोन्स के लिए रोएं. अरे भाई वो अपनी जगह वी आर अगेंस्ट इट, वी डिनाउंस इट, मगर इस मुल्क में एक ड्रोन्स का तो स्यापा नहीं है. मगर ज्यादा मसला तो ये है कि आपने एक नैरेटिव ही ड्रोन पे बना लिया. देयर इज मच मोर इन दिस कंट्री दैट इज हैपनिंग. आपके जो 100,000 लोग मरते हैं, जो वो मरदूद तालिबान मार रहे हैं, उसका तो जिक्र आप नहीं करते हैं.
बिल्कुल.
उनके साथ तो आप बात करने को तैयार हैं, उनको दफ्तर देने को तैयार हैं. और मुझे शर्म आई जब पीटीआई कहता हम उनको दफ्तर देंगे. वहां कहीं ये ना हो कि उनको आप तोपों की सलामी भी दे रहे हो.
I do want to, in fact, maybe my next column is going to be about drones. I think that's a very good topic.
जी हम तो अदब और लाहौरी की बात कर रहे थे, फिर वो बात हो जाती है, आपको मालूम है.
Hi, Assalamu alaikum.
जी सर.
I'm Abdullah. I just wanted to ask, have you ever considered turning your writings into comic strips or maybe videos or vines? Because I mean, just by listening to you and making my own scenes and just visualizing, it's hilarious, even just in my own imagination. But I mean, you're like seriously, you can do stand-up comedy even, because it's so,
in my retirement, that's my retirement.
And one more thing, what sort of response do you get from people who pretend to be intellectuals and everything, and
देखिए, इस मेरी ज़बान में ये लिखी नहीं गई ना, तो जिस ज़बान में लिखी गई है तो उनकी मर्जी, जिस मर्जी ज़बान में बात करें. आप खत्म कर लें अपना.
So what sort of response do you get from people who I've seen a lot of people who, for them, they're like, मुझे उर्दू नहीं आती, and they pronounce Urdu like ये कैसे होएगा और ये होगा, these kind of people. So what sort of response do you get from these people के अरे आप तो इस तरह मैलो की तरह बात करिए. It's hilarious, and I know, I can relate to it.
Well, I tell you what it is. आपका पहला सवाल था कि why don't I turn it into a comic strip? Because I can't be, I don't have the facility to draw. So I can't do that. If you're talking about a comic book of this, then I'll have to do a collaboration with somebody. Same with making a film of it or making it into a CD or something. It has to be a collaboration, and nobody has come forth so far.
I'm an artist actually. I can.
Chalo, we'll talk.
Yeah. Thank you.
And with regard to people reading it, I have to say most of my readers have been very generous to me. And they have been very kind, and they have taken the butterfly to their hearts. So I have no complaints. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. I have a question.
I was just going to say we have last 5 minutes.
Okay.
So if you could read a bit more.
एक तो सवाल पूछ
हाँ सवाल ले लीजिए
Yes,
सवाल
please.
लीजिए बिल्कुल
Yes, it's a brief question. You are the butterfly yourself, and you have friends around you. So the other butterflies, when they read this book by you, what do they comment? Like, what do they think? Don't they say it's exaggerated?
I'll tell you what they say. They always say, "Hi, ये किस पे adopt की है? हाँ, किस पे adopt की है? इतनी familiar लग रही है." So I always say, "मेरे पे." Okay, 14th October 2009, 2 suicide bombers arrested in Chakwal. Police has taken out an ad in the papers telling us all to be aware of suicide bombers. They say we should watch out for people who look a bit fattish in their top halves. Suicide vests do nothing for your figure, na? And they are distracted and loudly saying Arabic prayers and sweating like tandoor walas. So yesterday when Janu had gone out and Kulchu, thanks God, had gone for tuition, I was at home watching again my best English film, Bride and Prejudice. It's an adoption of an English TV series by a famous English TV writer called Jane Austen. And then Janu says, I never watch anything intellectual. Dekho zara. I was at that part when Oshwarya's younger sister is doing the Cobra dance, when the bearer came and said that a Kashmiri shawl wala had come and wanted to show me his stuff. I got all excited thinking, maybe I can buy a new double-colored chartouche to sado Sunny with at the wedding season. Ever since chartouches got banned in India, they become harder to find here also, na? Apparently, they're made from the chin hairs of some mountain goat, which is getting succinct in India, and that's why they've put the ban. Trust the Indians to spoil everyone's fun. Honestly. Anyways, thinking it was my old shawl wala Akhtar, I paused the film and told the bearer to put him in the drawing room. When I walked in, it wasn't Akhtar at all, but a thin, young man who I had never seen before, in a shallu kurta and a wispy beard and a white crochet cap on his head. But even more worse, he was wearing a puffy leather jacket. And most worst, he had this suitcase lying beside him. I swear I heard it ticking. My color immediately flew out of my face. He said his name was Imtiaz and that he was from Islamabad, and he'd heard from the shawlwalas ki grape wine that I was a collector of shawls. And then he reached inside his pocket, took something out, and bent towards the suitcase. Bas. Then I lost it. I said, I didn't have any money, and I hated shawls anyway, and I'd never bought a shawl in my life, and didn't he know there was an economic slum on, and that we were defaulters, and the banks were after us, and he mustn't please Allah ke waste open that suitcase, and who'd given him my address, and I was a God-fearing Muslim, and I had a young son, and what would become of him, and please have some pity. He looked at me as if I was completely crack. But I didn't care, and by this time, I think so, he was more afraid of me than I was of him. Because suddenly he picked up his suitcase and ran. When he was gone, I called all the servants, the bearer, the cook, the driver, the maid, the sweeper, the guard, shards, everyone. And I shouted at them for letting people into the house that they didn't know when the sitch was so bad, and why were they such stupids, and just now only I'd soiled a suicide bomber all by myself. So they also looked at me as if I was crack, but I damn care, stupid jaise. Anyway, later that evening, Sunny called and said, guess what? I've just bought the most fab double-colored 6-yard chartouche from this darling little shawlwala called Imtiaz. And such a good price he gave me, 2 times less than that chor Akhtar. He said he'd heard all about me from the other shawlwalas. Apparently, I'm known as Lahore's greatest shawl collector. Wait till you see my new shawl. You, though, will just die. Thank you.
Okay, we have time for just one last comment or question, if there is any. Okay, there. Mic de dijiye zara.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
So with that,
Thank
we'll
you,
close the
Ruma.
session. Thank you, Moni.